Hey everyone, today I want to talk about something that's becoming more prevalent and more seen throughout the cyber threat landscape today. As you may have seen, over the past couple weeks or months, whether you watch, like regular news or if you just keep up with like cybersecurity or tech news in general, there's pretty much a whole new wave of phishing that's happening. Phishing, not like the actual phishing, if you know what I'm talking about, like the phishing in cybersecurity terms, right? There's been a whole new wave of phishing towards in text messages regarding they're called Easy Pass or iPass or tollway scams. Essentially, what this is, it's a very clever phishing method. I may say, like I think it's very clever because the text is like very easy to read, right? It says you have an unpaid toll for Easy Pass, iPass, whatever, and you need to pay it by clicking on this link. The average user that would look at that quickly, someone not like myself or maybe you who was watching this would honestly probably click on that if they're in a rush or weren't thinking about it, right? So basically, the cleverness of these scams is quite scary, because in my state that I live in, we don't have tollways coming in, but going out into Illinois, there are tollways. So essentially, that would be the only time that I would have to pay a toll or get that text message. So for me, it's a little bit different because there's not tollways that are like local in the state. I know some of the states I've been to on the East Coast when I was a kid, when I was a lot younger. I think they had tollways within the state, if I'm not mistaken. So for those who live in those regions, that makes sense. But essentially, this scam, it's a very smart and clever scam, but really don't fall for it. I mean, I know it sounds easier said than done, but try to be vigilant, right? If you get a text message saying that you have an unpaid toll, but your state doesn't have tolls like me, or if you're like me and go to work and come home and don't go anywhere and just kind of a shut in, you're not gonna get a text message for that either. So it's kind of like you have to use. I don't want to say it like too simply, but use your context clues. You know, essentially what these threat actors are trying to do is really, target, I think it's the older crowd that, might not remember the last time that they went somewhere, or just they're probably trying to target everybody in general through a quick text that, looks legitimate because it does look like something you'd receive if you didn't pay a toll, and they scanned your license plate and it's tagged to your phone number. That would make total sense. So that's why I think it's pretty clever, but, it's not a good thing to do. Another thing I've noticed in these scams is that usually they come from what I believe is mostly European numbers, which they have, the United States is a +1, and I believe +63 is somewhere in Europe. Don't correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe, that's another key thing you can kind of look at when getting some of these text messages, right? For those ED and iPass scans. If it's not from like, one of those like 4 or 5 digit numbers, or if it's not from a United States number, if it's from like a +63, obviously, that's not right. That's fake. There's no way that we would be offloading that task. I mean, we could have like people working on that solution in Europe, but I don't think a European number would be texting you. That's just kind of all out weird in general. But essentially with this scam, right? It's very clever. I see how people can be targeted by it, and also with the scam, I noticed one other thing I forgot to mention is that when you click on the link in the text messages, it brings you up usually to a website that looks pretty real too. But essentially, you kind of have to really sit back and think about it. Have I traveled in the last, recent couple of weeks, months? Does my state have tolls? And really look at that phone number and try to discern if that, looks right to you. Or even, in today's day and age, look up the phone number. There's a million open source phone number lookup tools and stuff like that, and I'm sure you could find some information on that phone number if you really want to. But yeah, just want to make a quick video today. Beware of those new phishing attacks, and I think it's quite interesting that they came up with that way. It's almost like, I know I talked about click fix not a while ago, but the new easy iPass or tollway scams are very clever, and I see how people could be getting compromised easily. But yeah, stay vigilant, be aware, and hopefully this video helps to those who haven't seen them yet, or who have seen them and maybe fallen victim to them. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today, and I hope you enjoy. Peace.